Everyone, welcome in a new video. In this video, we are understanding a fork system call in detail. We are solving a question which is appeared in a GATE exam, and we are understand a fork system call in detail. Okay, so our program is fork, and fork. So this is what our question is. Now, what you have to do is you have to find out that total number of child process created. Child process created. So what you need to find out is total number of child process. Okay, so I'll give you an option, like option is 3, 4, 7 and D 10. So these are the options. What you have to do is you have to simply choose a one correct option and pause the video, comment down your answer. What is your answer is. Now let's solve this question. Okay, so what fork is do? Fork is basically created. If I write fork, it created into a two parts. It created a process into a two part, parent process and a child process. Parent process and a child process. Now after that, what basically happened? Let's say let's give it a name, like it's a 1, 2 and a 3, third fork. Okay, so first of all, fork 1 is called. Okay, fork 1 is called, and parent process is created and a child process is created. Okay, so after that, what basically happen is, now first line is execute, it moves towards the next line. So now parent process is also creating a two process and a child process is also creating a two process, because here what basically happen is two processes created. Here what happen is two process is created, which is a parent and a child, these two process. When we move further, again fork is called. So now the parent process is whole. This whole will treat it as a parent process, and now this is distributing two process. Okay, so now fork 2, what basically happened? The P is also creating a two process and this child is also creating a two process. Okay, so now fork 2 is called. Fork 2 is called. Okay, fork 2 is called. Okay, fork 2 is called. Now parent and a child. Now the important point is child process created another child process. Let's give it a name, child process 1. So the child process 1 and child of that one process, let's say it C11. Okay, child process. Now this C1 is a like parent process. C1 is what? A parent process for, because here is what? C1 and here is what? C1, and then in the left side what basically is parent process. So now C1 is like a parent process here. Okay, now after that we are completed the second line. Now we are moving towards the third line. Now this whole process is treated as a parent process, and now these are divided, this whole thing is now treated at once. And so whatever the next command is, whatever the next system call is, we have to create two process for all these things. Okay, so this parent process create two process, one is parent and another is the child process. Okay, let's give it name as well. So it's child process 2, it's a child process 3. Okay, so it's child process 2, child process 3. Now this is also creating a two process, so it's C2, the parent process, and the child process, let's say it's C2 2, or you can say it's a second process, first child, so write C2 1. This is also creating a two process, C1, the parent one, and the child one. So it's like C1 2, C1 2, and this is also creating a two process. Okay, so this is also creating a two process, C1 1. This one is a parent one, and the child one, C1 1 1. Okay, now whole three line is now completed. Okay, so the important thing is this one is a fork third, fork third, third fork, third fork. Okay, so now everything is perfectly created, everything is perfectly created. we execute all these 3 lines. Now what is our task? Our task is to count the number of process. Our task is to count the number of process. So now number of child process. So now let's count the number of child process. This is what a parent process is. In a program there is only one parent process, which is this one. This is about parent process, so we not have to count the parent process, we have to count the child process. Okay, this one is a child process. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So how many child process are there? There are 7 child process. There are 7 child process. So there are 7 child process. So 7 is our correct answer. 7 is our correct answer. Okay, so I hope you understand this question, that how is basically the fork is used, how the process is basically created. Okay, so if you understand this, now what you have to do is you have to solve this question. You have to solve the next question. Okay, so so let's say that, okay, so what we basically generalize here. Okay, let's generalize these things. Okay, so what we generalize means, if a question says that, every time you're not creating these things, what happen if a 4 fork is there, so how you create it again and again and again? You are not supposed to create this chart again and again and again. If you're solving a gate exam and 5 fork process are there, so you are not going to creating all the process. Okay, so what is a general formula for that? By saying this thing, these 3 conditions, these three fork, these 3 system call, what can you able to drive the general formula? So let's do that. So up now, fork 1 is called, and similarly so many times the fork is called. Let's say fork is called for the n times. Fork is called for the n times. So and such statement are there. So now if n such statement are there, so what will be the total number of process? Total number of process. Total number of process. So the total number of process is 2 to the power n. 2 to the power n is the total number of process. Let's count these things as well. Here what is the number of process? 1, 2 and 3. 3 processes there, 3 fork is there. This is what? 3 fork. Now count the total number of process. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and the 8 one. So what is 2 to the power, sorry, so there is 8 process. So what is basically 2 to the power 3? Because here what is a number of process is what? 3. So value of n is what? 3. So what is that? 2 to the power 3 is 8. And here you can see that 8 process is created. So we can generalize these things, that for the n number of process we have 2 to the power n number of process. For the n number of fork we have 2 to the power n number of process. So now the question arises is like this. Let's say 5 fork is there. So what you have to solve? You have to solve 2 to the power 5. Okay. Now similarly, if a question asks you how many child process are there, because parent process is always one. Okay, remember this thing, parent process is always one. Question asks you that how many child process are there. So you know that parent process is always one. So what will be the child process? Child processes. So how many child processes were there? So in this case there is 2 to the power n minus 1 child process, because one is a parent process and rest of these processes are what? The child process. Rest of these processes are what? Child process. So you can easily find out the child process as well. So in this case we have 3 processes, and if you solve 2 to the power 3 minus 1, which is what? 8 minus 1, answer is what? 7. So 7 is the correct answer. Okay, writing these all things, we creating a chart and then counting the number of process, so it basically consume your time. So what you have to do is you have to use the formula to solve this question. Okay, and within a second, not even a second, within a second you can able to find out the answer. Okay, so this is what a fork system call program is solved. Let's do one more program of fork system call. Okay, so now so let's solve one more program. Now what you have is a simple C program, the main function. Now you have fork or fork Okay, and you have again fork, and after that what basically you have a print. Let's say you have to print the let's say you have to print the star. Okay, and after that the condition is now completed, the if condition is completed. After that there is one more print, and what you have to do is you have to print the star again, and this is your program. This is your program. What you have to do is you have to solve this program. You have to find out that how total number of stars there. You have to find out that total number of stars. So find so I write a question here like find how many stars is printed. How many stars is printed? Easy question, easy question. You can able to do that. Pause the video. Remember what you have to do is you have to see that okay, there is three fork and or condition. This is an or condition, so it means if a one fork is true, it come the cursor is come in the inside these braces. Okay, inside this condition. Pause the video, try to solve it by yourself and comment down your answer. Okay, let's solve this question. So to solving this question, first of all, we are determining the fork number. Let's say this one is like first fork, second fork, and the third fork. Okay, so we given a number to this fork. Now let's solve this question. Okay, fork 1 and a fork 2. First of all, what basically happen is cursor is in a main block and then moving towards the condition. Moving towards the condition. Now let's check the condition. First of all, what basically executed? Fork number 1. Program is executing from a left to right. So fork number 1 is executing, then fork number 2 is executing. Okay, so fork number 1 is execute. So let's create the chart. Okay, so fork 1 okay, so fork 1, or you can say like parent process is creating a two process, the parent one and the child one. Parent one and the child one. Now this thing, the concept of that values, what basically the child process get, what the parent process get on a creation of a child process. If you remember that thing, then you can able to solve this question. Okay, so fork 1 is executing, fork 1 is execute, parent process is created and a child process is created. Now what is the condition? Some values. If that condition is true, if that condition is true, then what basically happen is then whatever the written inside this condition is basically execute, whatever written inside this condition. Similar case happen with the child process as well. If the condition is true, so whatever written in the child process is printed. Okay, so you let's see that what is the process, what basically is printed. Okay, now so there is a successful creation of a child process. So if there is a successful creation of a child process, it means this if condition receives some positive value. This condition receive a positive value. If a condition received a positive value, here you can see that in a program. Now this is what received a positive value for a parent process. It means what? Here is a or condition. So if the fork 2 value is negative, then it doesn't matter because the condition is what? Or. There is a or condition. It means if a one condition is true, then cursor enter in our inside this block. So now because it received a positive value, it means condition is not true. It received in this inside this condition, and fork number 3 is called. Fork number 3 is called for this parent process. Okay, fork number 3 is called. So okay, so fork number 3 is called for the parent process, okay. Now same thing, if the condition is true, then whatever written inside this is basically printed. So so not like this, not like this, not like this, not like this. Now fork number 3, so let's say that, let's give it a name like child 2 because child 1 is here. So let's give it a name child 2 and a parent process. So now fork number 3 is called, and here you can see that there is no like condition thing or whatever the condition is like. So there is not like this, not like a condition. So we have to do nothing with that. So means created to process, execute this part. Okay, similar. So child process, what basically it print a star, it print a star of means star means this one, and after that it come out from the block and it print this star, come out from block and print again a star. Okay. Child process is printed 2 star. Now it's time for the parent process. No condition like thing like this, if condition things. So what we have to do is cursor move directly towards this point. Now what the print says, print a star. So the parent process print a star, then it move outside the block, outside this condition, and again it have to print the star. So it print the star again, it print the star again. So parent process and a child process printed 2 star. Parent and child product, child thing printed 2 star. Why it printed? Because the condition is now true, condition have a positive value, so it come inside the block and both the process are executed. So this is what a parent. Now moving towards the child one, because now this is a complicated thing, because it returns 0 means condition is not true right now. So we have to execute fork 2, because fork 1 is what? Because child process get 0 on a successful creation. So it returns 0, but okay, so but the fork 1 is not alone. There is a fork 2 as well. Now we have to check the fork 2. If fork 2 is successfully created, then we can enter in this block for the child process. Okay, so let's do that thing. So now 2 processes created. C1, the parent one, C1 parent one. This is a parent one for the above process. Okay, and the child process. So let's say C11. Now the same thing, condition, because condition is not true right now, so nothing is printed here. So the condition, first one is false, so 0. If this is true, then it can successfully entered inside this, and similar case happen with the child process as well. If this is true, then it successfully entered in the child. Okay, so now what basically received a child process? Okay, so fork number 2 is called. So fork number 2 is called. So here I write fork 2. Okay, so fork 2. Okay, fork 2 is called. Parent process and a child process. So child process received 0. So again the condition is now false. Okay, fork 1 is already 0 and fork 2 is also 0, because when child process is created, child process received 0. Now both the condition are false. If both the condition are false, it never move inside this condition. So whatever written inside this, like fork number 3 and the star, is not executing. It come outside the block, because condition is now failed. It come outside the block and print whatever is there outside this block. So there is only 1 star outside the block. So what this child process does, it only printed 1 star. So 1 star is printed here, and 2 star is printed here, and 2 star is printed here. Now moving towards the parent process, the left parent process. Okay, so child process is on a successful creation of a child process, the parent process received a positive value. Now the condition is true for this process. If a condition is true, it move inside this block. So what happened inside this block? 1 fork and a star. So if the condition is true, it move inside this. So if move inside this, again we have to call a fork number 3, because we have three fork, 1 and 2 is executing. For that, third one is left, so we have to execute the third fork. Now we are here right now. Okay, so fork number 3 is executing, and fork number 3 creating a parent process, let's say C1, because it's a parent process C1, and the child process C12. Let's give it a name C12. Now the execution of this fork number 3 is now completed. After that, what basically happened? Now moving cursor from the fork 3 to print command, we have to print the star. Now both the processes, the parent and the child processes, print star. So this one is also print star, and the child process is also print star. Now it leave the it leave the brace, because it leave the command and come outside that condition, and it see one more print statement which print the star. So what it do, these two process again print the star. So how many star this process printed? Two printed here and two printed. Okay. So I hope you understand this question, that how is basically the fork one is executing. Okay, so we have to write the number of stars. So there is 9 star printed. Here you can count it like 2 and 2 4, 2 and 2 is 8, and the 1 here. So total number of you can say a fork process is printed here is, total number of star is printed is 9. Total number of star is printed. Okay, so I hope you understand this fork system call. Okay, very important for the gate point of view, because every year one fork question is definitely coming in an exam. Okay, so it's a very important thing to understand the fork system call. Okay, so I hope you understand this thing very clearly. Now what you have to do is, now we are going to solve one more question related to this. Okay, so let's solve one more question related to this. Okay, so if you want to take a screenshot, you can take it like that. Okay, this is like, now moving towards the next program of, okay, so now you can easily able to do that program. Okay, so what you have to do is, okay, so our question is like, okay, so our question is like void main, the main statement, the simple main program. Now what is happen is, if for a fork, now the condition is changed. Now what basically happen is, there is a AND condition. It means both have to be true for the for whatever written inside this condition to be executing. So again fork, and then print the star, and the condition is ended, and after that condition you have to print the star again. So what you have to do is, sim question, you have to find the total number of stars printed. You have to find out total number of star printed. Okay, so try to solve this question, pause the video, try to solve this question by yourself, and if you are not able to do that, then resume the video. So let's solve this question and wrap up the video. Okay, so first of all, let's give it name: fork number 1, fork number 2, and fork number 3. 3 fork is there, and this star is printed when the condition is true, and this star is printed when the condition is solved. Okay, so fork, the parent process, created the two process. Now we are on line number 1, main function, then moving towards the next line. So fork number 1 is called, and fork number 1 creating a two things, the parent process and a child process. It's basically creating a child process. Okay, so the parent one and the child one. Okay, child one. Okay, so these are the conditions here, dash and dash. So whatever condition is, so child process receives 0. So the fork one, here the value in a child process, the value of a fork one is what, 0. Same thing happen with here as well, dash and dash. So whatever written inside, so whatever is basically returned is written here. So child process is successfully created, so it returns some positive value. So positive value is returned here. Then what basically we have to do? We have to do nothing, because here AND statement is there. So AND statement means we need both the condition. We need fork number 2 as well. So what we have to do is, here is a positive value, so this condition is not executing right now. The child process is executing because condition is 0. So now fork number 2 is called. So it's creating child process and a parent process and a child. So now what happen is, fork 2 is executing. Why 2 is executing? Because first condition is false. false. If the condition is, this condition is false, then we are moving towards the next condition. We cannot move next condition here till the getting the value of the fork2, because both the condition is true to executing further. Okay, if both the condition is false, then definitely we come out from this condition and print a star. Okay, now fork2, child process is created. Okay, so the child process is created if dash and dash. So 0 is already there, same thing happen here as well, 0 and dash. So whatever is there, we are going to print that thing. Okay, so child process, what basically they get 0. Child, because value of child process is what? 0. The value of child process is 0. So this doesn't print anything. This doesn't print anything. So condition is what? False. Condition is false. So whatever is outside this condition is printed. So in this question you can see that condition, there is no execution of a condition, so it moved towards the end point, which is a star. We have to print the star for this. So 1 star is printed here. 1 star is printed here. So on the successful completion of a child process moving towards the parent process, it returns some positive value, because child process is created. If it return positive value, again the condition is false, because it's a and, both have to be true to executing the block. So again the condition is false if a statement is not executed. If the condition is false, so it again move towards the last. It basically, the cursor come out from the condition. So from if, it directly jump towards the next point, which is a print statement. So this is also printed 1 star. I hope it is easy to understand what basically happen here. Okay, what basically happen here. Okay, now whatever do here, we have to do the same thing here as well. Now we have one value. Now we have to execute the fork2 to get this, okay. So this is further divided into two parts. This is divided into two parts. Okay, fork2 is called because fork1 gives some positive value, so fork2 have to be called. So fork2 is called, it create a parent process and it create a child process. It create a parent process and a child process. Let's say child number 2, because we already gave a child number 1 here. Okay, so child number 1 here, so give it child number 2. Okay, now what basically happen is same thing, some positive value, and it returns something. If a condition is true, then it executing whatever is there inside this block. Now it moves toward the parent process and have some positive value, and if whatever is there, if it gets that positive value, then it execute whatever written inside this condition. Neither it leave the condition and moving towards the last print statement. Okay, so child process, whatever the value of a child process, 0. So again condition false. If a condition false, then what happen is cursor move from the condition towards the print statement. So again this child number 2 is printed 1 star. Child number 2 is printed 1 star. Okay, child number 2 is successfully created. Child number 2 is successfully created. On a successful creation, it receive a positive value. So now both are positive. In a parent case, both are positive. If both are positive, it means whatever written inside this statement is executing. Okay, now the condition is true, both the condition is true. So if both the condition is true, now cursor move inside this, and what happen is this fork number 3 is now executing, because condition is true, it move inside this condition. So fork number 3 is now executing. So it divided into two parts. This parent process divided into two parts. First one is what? Parent, and the child number 3. Okay, child number 3. Now what happened is in child number 3, what basically it printed, it printed this star and then move out and printed this star. So it means it printed 2 star. It printed 1 star and then again star. 2 star is printed here, and if and 2 star is basically printed here. Now what happened is, let's make it question more tricky and more tricky. So what basically I do is So okay, so write it like this only. Okay, so write it like this. So now parent process printed 2 star. It also printed 2 star because now there is no condition here, there is no more condition, so it printed a star here and a star here as well. So 2 star is printed here, 2 is printed here, and 1 is printed here, 1 is printed here. So 2 and 2 4 5 6 and 1 is here. So 7 star is printed here, 7 star is printed here. Okay, now what you have to do is you understand that how we are solving this question. Now what you have to do is to solve this question. Let's try to solve this question. So void main, and you have a condition fork and fork. Okay, fork and fork, again fork, then print star, then again fork, and you have to print star. So this is your question. How many fork is there? 1 2 3 and 4 fork is there. Try to solve this question, try how many star is basically printed. Okay, so if you are able to do that, comment down your answer. So the correct answer is what, 10. If you are able to find out the 10 star, then it means you solve this question right. If not, then you basically have to try this to solve this question. Okay, so thanks for watching this video. Like the video and subscribe my channel.